ahead and kind of like dive in, and hopefully like people will sort of come in and hang out. But just to kind of let you guys know, well, first I'm gonna introduce myself. I'm Christy. I'm a partner and brand strategist with Campfire Co. If you're not familiar with us to some extent, just to give you guys a broad background, we play in the world of branding, web design, and interior design. We're based in Richmond, and we've got most of our team here today except Lauren. But really the idea, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of big picture of this event, to be totally like give credit where credit is due, big fan of a designer who runs the I Love Creatives website. Her name is Puno, and she does this really great Squarespace course. And she had this awesome thing where she does like live office hours every month, and anybody who's taking her course can come into the office hours and they just like chat about stuff. And she shares her screen and like does tutorials, and it was just really cool. And I was thinking about how there's so many like designers and creatives that we're sort of loosely connected with, like through Instagram and other platforms, and we just like never have a chance where we get to just sort of talk about nitty gritty stuff and ask each other questions. So the point of this is just to be like an informal conversation. We're here to like answer questions, but we also have questions we want to ask you guys and like learn from y'all too. We're recording the event so that we could just put this on YouTube later and just have it be a resource for anyone else. But yeah, I'll stop and let the rest of the team introduce themselves, and then I'd love to have you guys introduce yourself too. Chelsea, you want to go?
Yeah, I would say I'll probably like pick on someone to introduce themselves because we don't know what orientation we're all in. But I'm Chelsea. I work as a designer for Campfire Co, specifically on the web and brand side of things. Nice to meet everyone. I'm excited for the first Clubhouse and have some good combos. I guess I'll pass it to Vaishon. You want to go?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Vaishon. I am one of the new designers on the Campfire team. So in the brand and web arena as well, and super excited to learn more, and been super exciting journey so far the past few months with Campfire.
Christina, you want to pick it
Rachel?
Oh. Yeah, it's like Christina, Rachel, you go, Rachel.
Hey, Patrick, welcome.
Right.
Hello.
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm Rachel Howlett. I am designer at Campfire Co as well, focusing primarily on the interior side, and I'm very excited about the Clubhouse. Been in Richmond for 2 years now, so excited to meet other creatives and connect. Yeah. All right, Christina, you're
all right. Yeah. Last camper here. I'm Christina. I am one of the co-founders of Campfire Co, and I work primarily on interior projects and also the graphic projects as well. Yeah, and I was really excited about this idea when Christy mentioned it at our leadership retreat last, whenever it was, February or something. And we finally got around to it. Way to go.
October.
Yeah. But it's still the same year, so.
Yeah. It's only, yeah, we never put a deadline on it. Well, we probably did at some point, but we're here finally. So I thought if you guys wanted, I'm not gonna force anybody to chat or talk or turn your camera on if you don't want to, but I thought maybe we could go around and just have everybody maybe just introduce themselves, like your name, your company, maybe like what industry you're in, and if like you had a specific question or like a reason you joined us today, maybe we could capture that right now, and then we can kind of start to either answer questions and kind of just see where the conversation takes us. We've allocated like an hour for this conversation, but you know, if things kind of start to wrap up in 30 minutes, we can go then, but we're here till 1 o'clock and we'll hang out as long as you guys want to hang out. Hi Felix, and hi Borden, and hi Eleanor.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Felix, it's so nice to see you. I sent you an email like 10 minutes ago. So random.
Yeah, hi Felix.
Okay, I'm just gonna call people out, and if you guys want to introduce yourself. Brian, you were first. You want to start us off?
Sure. My name is Brian. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I've known Christina and Christy and Lauren for quite a while. I went to school with Christina and Lauren at BCU. I do a lot of brand design, so I help mostly like startups or small retail direct-to-consumer brands with everything from naming to branding to packaging. But for the past year, I've been dedicating most of my time to a company called Studio. And it's basically a community for freelancers. So especially during COVID, when people couldn't connect together, we realized that, you know, freelancers needed accountability. They needed people to just turn to for advice. So we've sort of created that platform, and we're coming up, I guess yesterday was our 11-month anniversary. So yeah. And we do a lot of Zoom calls like this, and I just love talking to other creatives and being inspired by everyone. So I'm glad Christy sent me an email.
Yeah, I'm so stoked you're here, Brian. Thanks for coming. Sarah, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Choi. I'm in Richmond. I've known everybody since you were in Marvin Lang. So that's like 8 years ago, right? So it's nice to watch you grow. You're always inspiring. And I love this team change, like growth that you have. I congratulate you all on that. Welcome, Bashan. And I own Ignite Collective. I'm a marketing strategist, but more focused on operational strategy and execution of strategies, because I am major type A. In my corporate career, I got really tired of the red tapes and the good strategists just getting stuck and going nowhere. So Ignite is really based on, okay, so let's have a strategy, but let's make sure it's executable and it actually gets done and then see the light. So Ignite is really based on be the light, let there be light. I had a good fortune to work with Campfire Co for Empower Net project last year. Is it last year already?
Yeah.
Currently, I'm working with YWC Richmond and Dr. Tracy McMillan Cottom. And since last year, I am really focusing on working with organizations that do social justice and racial equity work in BIPOC-owned businesses. Thank you. Should I popcorn to somebody?
Yeah, that'd be great.
It makes things go really fast. What about Abby?
Hi, my name is Abby Barris, and I am an interior designer. I am freelancing, have my own kind of thing going. I actually studied under Eleanor at VCU a couple of years ago, took her business class. So, you know, it's boots on the ground now. We'll see how it's working out. Anyway, so I've been officially Abby Barris Interiors since about a year ago. I think I filed my SCC papers in November. And design's a second career sort of for me. I was a little bit older when I went back to grad school. So kind of reinventing myself, figuring out what I want to be when I grow up after I've already grown up, which is a little late, but so I'm just learning a lot of things as I go, which is not always the most efficient way, but I guess there's a freedom in teaching yourself, because, you know, if I think I'm not sure if this is how it's done, but this is how I'm going to do it, this is how it works for me, and if it works for my clients, then I call that a win. So I appreciate the flexibility. I primarily design for churches and nonprofits. That's kind of my background. I have a lot of history there. So I've had a few projects this year and just kind of figuring out how to keep them coming as a freelancer. So thank you so much for this forum. I've been a huge fan of Campfire for years and love what you guys do. I'm always kind of on the lookout for what you've got going on. So thank you.
Thanks, Abby. You've always been such an awesome hype woman for us on Instagram. We really appreciate that. Let's see, Patrick, would you maybe introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Patrick. I'm here in Richmond, and I am a freelance designer and illustrator. So mostly working on branding for startups, but also with the freelance life, kind of taking on whatever comes my way. So it's been an interesting ride so far.
Awesome. Yeah. Felix, you want to go next?
Sure. I'm off mute. Hi, everyone. Felix Hidalgo here. I'm also in Richmond. I have worked with Christy and Chelsea on a previous project before. I currently work at Capital One, but have been kind of, with the whole COVID thing, has really opened up a lot of opportunities to do like a little bit more freelancing and helping smaller businesses with different sites and apps. So no particular agenda for today, just kind of wanted to hop on. I'm also a huge fan, so kind of wanted to jump into the community.
Sweet. We're stoked you're here, Felix. Eleanor, I'm so glad you joined us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Eleanor Barton, and I am a professor at VCU teaching the business class. I've been teaching it on and off for 13 years. And I also have my own business now, Eleanor Barton Designs. I had worked with Blaving Homes for 12 years, and I found I stopped designing, and I was more about managing people, so I wanted to get back into design. And so I came across your blurb in LinkedIn just about 10 minutes ago, and I thought, oh, this one's very interesting. And I've been a big fan of Campfire, even though our paths have never really crossed, but I've followed you from afar. And
yeah.
Teaching a wonderful group of grad students, again, the business class. So I am always looking for opportunities to connect them up with other creative people, because many of them do, just like Abby, do go off on their own and start their own businesses. So I'm excited for them. It's a wonderful, joyful challenge, having your own business. I like all the aspects of it, every single aspect of it. I too, in fact, college at an older age. My first career was in accounting. And but
that's so funny. We worked with another interior design client who was an accountant first. Wasn't Catherine Jordan an accountant first?
I think she was.
Yeah, and then went into interior design.
Yeah, I mean, I use my accounting every single day on my project. So.
Right, yeah.
And I just made a huge long email last night to my students telling them all the different ways you could create your fee for your own business. So because there's many different ways to do that. And I'm
oh my gosh, yeah. So you'll be an incredible resource in this group.
Well, I believe in sustainable design, and that means that the designer needs to be sustainable, and that profit is not a bad word. It's actually what we do this for. So we sell for it is what I find. Even myself, I'm the same way. So,
yeah.
well, thanks for letting me be an interloper. I'm really
absolutely. No, we're stoked you're here.
I would love for you to come and speak to my class. We have our meetings. And Abby, I would love for you to come back and describe your experience, because it's one thing to have gray hair tell them this is what goes on out there. How nice it would be to have someone who's out there right now and creating your own journey and your own. So please.
Well, I would love that. And I will try to keep my grays hidden.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, we love talking about business as it relates to design, which is one of the reasons we wanted to do this, but it's always been one of the reasons we've done workshops and events and other things, because as much as we love doing design, you know, the thing that we've realized once you sort of create a career in that path, there are just so many other things that we end up having to do in addition to kind of that first thing that we started doing, or, you know, kind of what our initial passion was. So real quick, I just want to get Borden and Tiffany, and I'm going to mispronounce it, but can you?
Easy. It's like Thailand and easy, put it together, Thai easy.
Thai easy. Oh my God, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want to go next? Introduce yourself?
Sure. Like I said before, my name is Thaisi, a little bit different. I'm Brazilian. I've been living in Richmond at the moment for 4 years now. Originally, I come from the publishing industry. I used to do copywriting in Portuguese and Spanish, but since I moved in here, I changed a little bit my path. A year before moving in here, I actually got into brand strategy in a media company back in Argentina, where I was living. And since then, I've been working with brand strategy and digital solutions. At the moment, I work for Compulse Digital Marketing, which is the digital company of the digital agency inside Sinclair Broadcast Group. So we do cover up the digital side of TV stations. So I'm the one,
awesome.
Mostly the one in charge in Richmond.
That's great. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you.
Borden, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Borden Edgerton. I'm a landscape architect. I'm licensed here in Virginia, and I started talking with Christy because she actually helped me interview at one of our old companies that we used to work for. It was an architecture, interiors, and landscape architecture company. And I had reached out to her to help me with branding with a company I've just launched finally in June. And it's called Forms by Federated. And the basic principle of what I've done is working as a landscape architect. I saw a lot of frustrations in the whole design process between developer, designer, and contractor, and getting everything organized and coordinated is really complicated. So the whole point of the company was trying to step away from design and actually help the people who are designers more with the support. So it's a semi-consultant and semi-product distributor model. So that's the story that I've got.
Sweet. Thanks so much for joining us. Tiffany, would you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Tiffany. I'm just hopping on 15 minutes in between some Friday calls. I'm a designer based out of Richmond. I went to BC for graphic design school, and I started with agencies and then some corporate, and now I'm more in the startup world. And so right now I'm currently a brand designer, but at startup, it means I do everything. So just kind of do a mild mix of like web design and brand design and illustrations, and just helping setting them up. It's they do software for private practice owners. So
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And like, just like I was saying before, this is a super casual conversation. You guys can come and go as you want. Totally don't feel like you have to be here the whole time. I did drop in the chat, but if you guys have any like specific questions you want us to cover, we have like a couple things that people sent us via Instagram that we'll sort of start with, and then like a couple other stuff we just wrote down that we maybe want to talk about. But really, this is a chance for you guys to guide the conversation. So feel free to drop any like specific things you want to talk about in the chat. And then also feel free to chime in like as we're talking. Like this doesn't have to be just Campfire talking. Like we would love for it to be a discussion. So one of the things that I think it was Patrick maybe asked us on Instagram was talking about a question about basically like initial calls or like a discovery call, and kind of like how do you talk to clients about budget and like the initial direction or like vision of a project. Did you have any like clarifying details on that, Patrick, or is that, you feel like that covers your question?
Yeah, I feel like, I'll get like potential clients reaching out, either DMs and Instagram, which I don't prefer, or an email. And I'm always, I guess, struggling sometimes with how to turn them into a client and how to discuss like their budget without like immediately being like, how much money are you going to pay me? So it's kind of that converting them, but also building that relationship. So any insights on like when you do a phone call or how you do that discussion?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. And it's for sure one of those elements I think like probably everybody does it a little bit differently, because it's not a super like public thing where we don't really know how other people are doing it. But the way that Campfire does it, our ideal way would be that a client fills out our inquiry form on our contact page. And so sometimes when we get sort of random inquiries, whether that's like someone sends a DM or even just kind of like a weird random email, like let's say like Christina were to get an email about somebody interested in a new project because they knew her, she would reply to them and say, she's like, what do I do? Christy, help. No. But typically she'll just say like, hey, thanks so much. I'm going to CC, Christy, who usually handles our inquiry. But we would love for you to fill out our inquiry form on our contact page. And so I would say starting with like just making sure that your contact form or that lead generation form is asking the questions that give you the answers to help you figure out, is this a good lead or a bad lead, right? Like, so you can immediately kind of decide, do I want to set up a call with this person, or are the details this person has given me kind of like, ooh, that's like probably not the right fit. So I'm just going to go ahead and say like, thanks so much for reaching out, but actually we don't really do WordPress sites. So like, please call my friend Will. So that's like a really good place to start, is to have like a specific process that you want people to take. And then being very like thoughtful with the questions that you ask, basically as like a selfish way to get all of the answers that you want before you have to call someone and then ask them those questions, right? So that's a great place to start. So I'll typically reply to folks. So let's say they fill out that inquiry form. It sounds like an interesting project. I basically have a set of boilerplate emails to respond to inquiries. And so that's something that I've put together that kind of like, usually I customize like the first like sentence or two, just so it sounds not like it's totally boilerplate. But basically like, hey, thanks for reaching out. This sounds really cool. Here's how the typical process goes. And so I'll let them know, like, let's set up, like usually we set up a quick Zoom call to chat about your needs, and I'll talk you through our process, and we can kind of talk more about what you're looking for. And then I give them a little bit more information about us. And so I give them kind of like our little spiel of sort of like, this is kind of our typical approach, which kind of is like, for some clients, we're a little bit too much, if that makes sense. Like, we're not going to be the client that's going to be like, can you get me a logo in 2 weeks? It's like, definitely not. Like, we are going to like really go into depth. And so I just give them a little bit of a taste of that in that initial email. Like, here's our typical approach to projects. And then I include a statement about like, I've attached some information on like our typical packages. So in addition to that info in the email, I will also attach a PDF that has like some starting pricing and some starting scope for like basically our most typical project. So that allows a client to sort of like self-select as to whether or not they can afford us, or if we are starting to seem like the right fit for what they need. I will qualify with saying that if we get like a super cool inquiry where I'm like, oh, I really, really want this project and I don't really know what their budget is, like I won't, like every once in a while I don't send pricing just because I will be unsure if a client is like we're not going to go below our minimum numbers, right? But if I'm not really sure about the scale of the project, or it's a really cool, interesting thing and I don't necessarily want to scare them away, sometimes I will send that like base package information without pricing. But I would say 90% of the time I'm sending a client something that gives them a starting price and an initial understanding of timeline. And then I also include, so this email's like kind of beefy. It's not like a tiny email. It's like I've spent a lot of time making it like really amazing so that we can like get the folks that end up.
You're so like, extra, Christy. You're so extra.
But like we've worked really hard to make sure that like that initial inquiry and then response leads to a meeting that is like actually a good meeting. Like it's a qualified lead who has an understanding of our pricing, who is like buying into our approach. And then like I'm going to spend an hour really talking to them, and it's a worthwhile hour because I know that like there's potentially like a 50% chance that this project could be a great project for us. So in addition to writing that little blurb and then attaching some stuff, I will put times in the email that I can meet. So instead of waiting, like my biggest pet peeve is like going back and forth in emails for scheduling. And so I think that the easier you can make it for a potential client to schedule a meeting with you, the more likely they are to do it. And so we don't write proposals for clients that we've never met before, unless there's like, every once in a while we'll do an RFP, like respond to an RFP, but that's like, if the project sounds really amazing. But that's probably only 10% of the projects we go after will respond to RFPs. Usually we are meeting a client face-to-face. And I would say, you know, now that we're all virtual, I still do those meetings via Zoom. I don't do phone calls usually. And I found that like, talking to someone, seeing their face, like you get such a better rapport with people. Like the client basically starts to feel like what it would be like to work with you when they set that meeting. So I use like there's a number of different schedulers you can use to do this. Like you can use like a Calendly or like something else like that. I'm like kind of particular about it. And I really like for there to be specific times that are inserted in the email. So literally all someone has to do is like click a button and schedule the meeting. I just find that gives like a little bit more turnover of people actually being like, oh, all I have to do is press this. Like, yeah, I am available Tuesday at 11 a.m. And then you get that initial meeting scheduled. And then that's where you can start to ask a lot more questions about like, okay, in your inquiry form, you mentioned that you're interested in e-commerce. Tell me why. What does that mean? What are you looking for? What have you used in the past? Like, and then you can start to talk about stuff. And then usually after we talk about the big picture vision, for most clients, I will ask them, basically for every client, I will ask them like, have you considered a budget for design? And I would say like 30% of people have, and like 70% of people are usually like, I don't have any idea. Like, how much does design cost? Like, you tell me. And so, I mean, sometimes that's fine, you know, and then I can say like, well, yeah, like the packages I sent over, like, this is what our pricing starts at, you know, and we can talk through that. And then I typically tell them like how we bill. Sometimes that helps because we break up the payment over multiple months. That sometimes makes clients feel more comfortable about, you know, pricing and stuff. And yeah, I think that's it. Does anybody have any other specific questions, or do you guys have any other like thoughts or like hacks of ways to make that process work for you all? Does anybody do anything
I was
different?
just curious, like Patrick, is this like focused on after they've come in touch with you, or are you trying to prospect like cold calling? Because that's, you know, like that's a very different approach.
Yeah, that would be different. I'm talking about like they've reached out to me, and then kind of, like I said, I need to set up a form with questions, because right now my contact is like literally just like, I think, text box. So I normally just get like, I need a logo, you know, and I'm like, all right, I think we need to have like a whole conversation about what your needs are in your business. But so it's kind of like going from that email to like, you know, on to the next step of discussing budget and needs and all that.
Yeah, I would say knowing before you go into those emails your minimum price you're going to charge for anything, like what's my like get out of bed number, that is really helpful, so that like if a client, you know, tells you that their budget is like $200, you can be like, totally understand where you're coming from, you know, my minimum fee is $1,500, so if that's something that's outside of your budget, like I've got a couple freelancers I could refer you to, or you can just say like, you know, you might just want to DIY something for the first 6 months and then come back to a designer, because I don't know who's charging $200. But yeah,
Sarah,
having that minimum. Go ahead.
Yep. I was gonna say, Sarah, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have anything to add too?
So I just wanted to share a little bit of my perspective, because I'm not a designer. I'm always in a position to put together a team. So
yeah,
you know, usually businesses come to me and go, this is the concept I have. What do I need? How do I launch? Usually like I get involved about 6 months before something launches, and then make sure like all the, you know, boxes are checked. And one way for me to get that idea of, so I'm in a unique position where I'm not selling graphic design package, right? No branding package, but I know what each of the shops cost and what they are worth. So if you're a business with like brick and mortar shop, also e-commerce, and have packaging, then we need to go Campfire, right? And then if you're not, and then if you're trying to make some earrings and then sell them online to your, you know, and you're going to accept Venmo for payment, we're not spending anything like, you know, decent amount of money. But I think what's happened is everybody has become an expert. Everybody wants a side gig turned to their dream business. So everybody uses branding in very flexible ways, right? So everybody wants branding. Everybody wants social media strategy. Everybody wants this and X, Y, and Z. So usually when I get them, I just schedule a one-on-one. Like, thank God for pandemic for normalizing Zoom, so that I don't have to actually get dressed and go meet somebody for coffee, right? I can just dress like from here up and then, you know, have 30 minutes with them. But usually what I tell them is just give me your lay of the land. In the perfect scenario, from here to your launch, what are you doing? Like, what do you have? And then they would tell me like, I want this store, I want this, I want that. And then when they give me the dream, you know, landscape, then I ask them, so what is your funding? Like, how much money do you have for the whole thing? And then you kind of build them up and then you bring them down with a reality check. And then they go, I have $5,000. Then that gives you a pretty good idea, you know, for normal people. Yeah, I can spend $3,000 on that for branding. Or I have $500,000 funding. This is, you know, then I think just kind of giving them, forcing them to get the big picture. Because sometimes like everybody thinks if they build it, they will come. That's the number one mistake, right? If you build it, doesn't mean that they're going to come. There are so many things that you can do right or wrong. So I always go, okay, let's build it first, build it up. And then what you got? And then, oh, I have $10,000. Well, build it down. we're gonna build this very specific portion of it. And there's a hierarchy in order of the things that needs to be done, right? Branding has really done at the start of the project, so you can dictate the look and feel and then the experience that people are gonna have. So it is important, but how much money can you spend? So then I send them to like, okay, we're gonna go here. You wanna look at these 2 designers, and then, or maybe you need to go Fiverr, you know, because you just need, you just need something. And then it's not just logo you need colors, you need fonts, you need the whole experience. But do I really have time to talk to you about that? Because I don't, right? And usually the people who need that lesson, they're not ready to spend it either. So my 30 minutes of face-to-face time saves everybody sanity. I kind of think of it as my investment. Like, do I really want to work with you, or are you a nightmare? Because I don't need nightmares. I don't work with nightmare people. So like, are we driving? Okay, do you have generally good idea? Or you're dreaming too big? Is it executable? Then it's my way of shopping my clients as much as they shop me. But I'm in a very neutral position because they don't pay me for design. They don't pay me for any of the things actually. Sometimes it may be copy, sometimes, some of the project management, but my role usually is to advise them, okay, like from here to here, we go this way, and then we need to do X, Y, and Z first. So if I can share that with you, build them up, let them like give you all the details. What color is the bathroom? Pink, like, baby pink, okay. And then bring it back down based on the money that they have. And I think that's a fair investment for you to make to save your inner peace.
I totally agree. I feel like I was actually just talking to a potential client yesterday, and they told me a budget, and I knew it was a couple $1,000s less than probably what they were going to need, basically what we would charge. And so, but we ended up talking about their big picture vision. And I feel like when you get people in that moment of like being very like lofty and like really getting excited about what could be, they also sort of realize like, yeah, I really do want it to be that. So I am willing to spend a little bit more, or actually I am comfortable investing because I don't want it to continue to be this version of this thing that isn't really working for me. And I think that puts people in like a really excited mindset. And that's like a really good place to be in an inquiry call, is for folks to feel really hopeful and like excited for the future versus kind of like, ooh, I don't really know what I'm doing. And it's also a moment, like you're saying, basically to like answer questions, like for people to walk away from that meeting being like, oh, this person not only like got me excited about this thing, but they also answered a lot of questions. And so I'm starting to feel like some trust. Brian, you raise your hand. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think the way that both of you have talked about approaching it is there's a lot of similarities. Like I usually follow up. I don't have a form, but there's sort of that like filter email. If they write and say they need a logo or a brand, it's like, well, do you need like a full brand? Like what is that? And so just to sort of filter out the people that are like, I want a $100 logo, I sort of respond with a series of questions. And if they pass in terms of like their understanding of what they need, then I'll get on a call with them. But one thing I never do, I never talk about pricing on that phone call with them. It's just sort of like an interview to find out as much as I can. And then I let them know I'll get back to them with a quote. And what I do is I give them like the premium package, like all of your dreams come true. Like this is what I'm pitching. And I do that so it gives me room to negotiate, because they're either going to come back and say, oh, my budget is only, $5,000 or $2,000. And then you can say, okay, well, let's talk about what your immediate needs are. And then, you can reduce rounds of revisions, or you can, put things off till later when they have more of a budget. But then I always have that floor that you talk about where it's like, I'm not going to go below this. But I tend not to reveal those cards because if I really want to do the project, then, I'll sort of go down to that, but I'll definitely have to like shave off some of the scope. But then also when it comes to pricing, having a floor, I do a lot of value based. So depending on what industry they're in, I'm going to change what that pitch is. So if it's like a small coffee shop or cafe versus if it's a tech startup with venture funding, like they're, even if it's the same project, same scope, they're going to be very different pricing for that.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the hardest things too, is values-based pricing, and then layering that with basically the means or sort of the resources of the client that you're talking to. And basically the way that we've kind of approached that is we sort of have two buckets of clients, and we have like boutique clients and then we have enterprise clients. They're kind of like boring names, but that's just where we're at. But yeah, it's like our boutique clients are sort of those like smaller companies that might be the first time they've ever started a company. They're local, they're, you know, the reach of their brand is smaller. They're probably only going to open one location. They are going to be the owner and the operator and the everything, right? And then we've got those enterprise clients that are like, they've maybe done this before. They may be opening multiple locations. They have like a product or a brand that has like a regional or national reach, and we have to approach those projects differently, right? The amount that brand or that design is worth to that client that has a much broader audience, it's worth more. And so we have to like price appropriately. But that's really interesting that you don't reveal any pricing until later. And I definitely like really resonate with that. Like if a client is asking you to reduce a fee, you have to reduce scope. Like there has to be like a one-to-one, like don't ever reduce fee without taking away something that you're doing, because then it just kind of feels like the fee is arbitrary, right? Like it's not actually tied to something that you're doing. I wanted to sort of talk about Borden's question that you put in the chat. So kind of like in regards to like new companies, how do you guys have thoughts on breaking it down to the values that a client might need or latch on to? So Borden, are you thinking about some of those like initial conversations you have with a potential client and kind of like pitching them? Is that what you mean?
I guess I need to clarify a bit, just because like the Forms by Federated is like it's a complex company. It's not something that is simple to be like, oh, we do this, and people are like, oh, I get it. And so I've had to do a lot of like face-to-face calls and a lot of cold calling to drop in to set meetings up, because I've only found that people get it once they actually have a sit down, and I get to ask a lot of questions and understand what they're doing, and they get to ask questions like, you're doing this. I'm like, I'm kind of doing that, but I'm kind of doing this. But with our branding, like y'all did, I think you did an excellent job. But I've not seen it like people get it still. Like it's so new or complex that people just aren't getting it without it. And I was wondering if people had any thoughts on either direct marketing campaign, or what is your message? Like, how do you really simplify that message to a few sentences that people can get? I don't know. It's tough. I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Sorry, was somebody else saying something? Was that Christina?
Oh yeah, I was just saying like really working with a copywriter.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes really getting that third party perspective. And then also I would say, like, I know you're a new business, so you guys don't have the luxury of having like a ton of clients yet, but if you do have any relationships that you've cultivated or any clients who do seem to be getting it, sometimes even asking folks to sort of say, like, if you were to describe us to someone else, what would you say? That can be really illuminating to figure out like, what's the language that your client uses to describe you. You know, that's something actually when we finish up a project, I mean, you know this because we work together, but for everyone else, we always have a feedback form that we send clients at the end of a project, and I would say like it's probably 50% of people actually fill it out. But when we do get people to fill it out, one of the questions we ask is basically like, if you were to describe Campfire to one of your friends, what would you say? And then we get that kind of like very casual language of how people describe us, and it's very illuminating, like in terms of the terms people use, or sort of like what we think our value is versus what our clients see our value as. And sometimes those things are different. And I mean, honestly, right now, like literally on my to-do list is to do a bit of an audit of our website. We are really good at talking to our boutique clients because that's been like our bread and butter for so long. And as we try to like mature and kind of get a little bit more pulling in of like those enterprise clients, we're trying to figure out what is our value to that bigger client, to that like, you know, more corporate client, or that company that has like tiers of leadership that might be a little bit more data driven, like, and we're sort of trying to find our positioning in relationship to that client. And I guess just to say, like, I really resonate with how difficult it is. It's sort of like you're trying to do a lot of empathy, right? You're trying to like kind of be like, okay, if I was in that person's shoes, and there's only so much you can do of that if you've never been in their shoes. But I would say sometimes asking can be really, really helpful. Does anybody else have any thoughts on that? Hiring a copywriter can be really great too. We had some other stuff we wrote down. Oh, I think maybe Abby, I'm not sure if you wrote this, but someone on Instagram asked, what were the skills that we've used most on our creative journeys? I thought that was kind of a fun one. Maybe that wasn't you, Abby, that might have been someone else. But yeah, I'm gonna like hand it over to like Chelsea or Vaishon. Maybe you guys can tell us a little bit about what you feel like has been the most valuable to you guys in your creative journeys as professional designers.
Yeah, I can take it. So skills, I feel like, is a very wide, broad term. I think in the working world, I kind of classify it as, you know, like personal skills, or, you know, interrelationship skills, and then also technical, especially because I work in graphics. So starting kind of with the personal side, I do think one of the coolest things was being able to, when we translated, we talked about this a little bit yesterday too, like collabs and working with your team and growing and learning from your leadership and asking those questions and not being afraid to ask those questions. And Campfire, when we switched to digital, we had to really like adjust to doing it all virtual and using tools, different applications on Google Slides, and making that visual conversation a digital experience, which was really cool. And we definitely adapted. So I would say that like learning those new skills and tricks to talk digitally, since now I think that is also a big part of our future of still continuing digital conversations with branding clients and web clients, opposed to, you know, the previous completely in person. I think that was a really cool thing I've learned. And then skill wise, obviously all the Adobe programs we use, but lately just one that I wanted to talk about a little bit, if anyone heard of it, was Figma, which is what we use for web design. And we kind of, that's brand new kind of to us, and I really love it. But that was more like in a technical skill side. But those are some of my thoughts on that stuff. Vaishon,
Yeah,
do you have any?
for sure. Yeah, kind of in a similar vein, you know, being new to the team, I'm kind of adjusting and learning a lot of the program and softwares that, you know, we use internally. And then just kind of on the skills side, it's, you know, a lot of it kind of deals with, like Chelsea said, kind of the technical side of things, whether it be dabbling in different types of typography or custom illustration, line work, shading and gradients. So kind of the nitty gritty of the actual design process is something that I'm always looking to improve, and you know, doing some trial and error and then learning from Chelsea and other members of the team as well. So it's all a learning process. And as I'm, you know, working on more projects on the Campfire team and kind of digging into other facets of our process, of our entire design process, I'm excited to learn more. But right now, it's just been a lot of the technical side for me, for sure.
Yeah, I'm curious if anyone else, like, one kind of a two-part question, but curious if anyone else, how their transition from maybe in-person meetings to digital went, because I feel like I haven't really talked to other designers a lot about that. And then kind of two-part, what skills have you, that's kind of question back at you, you know, what are your favorite skills that you've learned so far as well?
I've had, well, I'm in the very beginning stages, but the visual calls, like using like a using like a Zoom call for an initial client, I don't find works very well. I've got to be able to read their eyes because I can see exactly when I'm losing somebody. And just like actually have it feel like a dialogue. But in terms of like the graphics, I was just about to type in that I recently picked up Inkscape because I can't afford Adobe. It's so damn expensive. It's way too expensive.
It is pricey.
So I was like, I had to research. I had this idea for making an infographic resource poster for a complex portion of the business and using that as like a poster that they could put up. I was inspired. I always like those Kurzgesagt, those videos that they post about, like they really break down complex topics and like using infographics. I've always liked that. So I made this like 3-part poster series, and that's my cold call. And I used Inkscape to make that, but it was like a 2 or 3 month process to like, how do you take 10 pounds of crap and put it into a 5-pound sack? How do you figure out the platform you want to do it on? How do you format it? Like, it was a long process, but I'm using it now and it's very successful for actually getting maybe a better virtual call after, because you don't have to actually interface with them that much. I wear a mask, I don't handshake, I'm popping in, I'm not actually pitching anything. I'm just like, I'd love to set something up, but hopefully you'll find this useful. It's a handoff. And that way you're not selling anything. You're not selling a product. It's very disarming, and it maybe, I think, puts you in a better light with what their first impression is.
I think that's a really good point, in terms of like sort of pitching in general, when you can sort of create the discussion around the idea of basically just kind of teaching somebody something versus selling them something, even if you're just teaching them your process, right? Like you don't have to like teach them something, monumental about design, but just thinking about like, okay, I'm just going to walk you through this and educate you about how things go generally. That is like something that can be, it just sort of reframes the dialogue and sort of the roles of the conversation. Instead of you being like the seller and then being the buyer, it's like you're the teacher and they're like learning, and then everybody walks away being like, wow, that felt really nice. We don't ever like, take clients through like a series of past projects or something like on a call. Like people just get bored. They don't want to do that. Yeah. So has anybody, in terms of like kind of Chelsea's question, has anybody had any like, I don't know, like shortcut or skill over the past year or so that's like changed your workflow or like really helped you? I don't know, whether that's like operate digitally or even just like your day-to-day stuff. It could be like super small.
Reading books, like I would suggest that, like read sales books on the matter. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things that I've introduced to my practice, and it's part of what we do at Studio, is like, they're called working groups. And basically there's a group of us that all have like a relative challenge. So we want to rebrand and relaunch a website, or we want to do business development and get new clients. So depending on what your focus is, a group of those people meet every 2 weeks for a 1-hour call. And it's basically about setting goals and then being held accountable to those goals. So you sort of, when you're a freelancer, you can always just put things off. But when you know that at the end of the week, you're meeting with all your peers and they're going to be like, hey, did you launch that new page, or did you, edit down your portfolio, or whatever you said you were going to do, it puts pressure on you to get it done. And, if you've worked in-house before at a studio, you have your studio mates, or you have your boss to say like, we need this done by the state. So, I found that this is incredibly helpful for me, not only with client work, but also with like all the personal side projects that I've been saying for years that I was going to do. And so, yeah, just having that accountability buddy in whatever form is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like even internally with our team, it's like if we have something we really want to be working on, we have to set up recurring meetings. Because like if we just are like, oh yeah, we'll do that, everybody go work on it. If there's not like a deadline where we have a meeting where we're coming back together, we just like won't do it.
We might reschedule that meeting like a few times, but
eventually
Chrissy,
happen.
that kind of reminds me of like your concept of, we tried this concept out called study hall. Is that what we called it?
Oh yeah.
Study hall.
It's kind of similar. We tried to get everyone together because we weren't in the office, and we wanted to see each other and talk and ask questions and bounce off kind of that same in real life office chit chatter. And so we put that on the calendar for like Monday for like 2 or 3 hours, and we could pop in, pop out, do little breakout rooms, and that was really cool. It kind of sounds similar. It was more like, you know, could have been a little bit less designer fun and more a little bit, like look at this cute cat meme or something, but it was still fun.
It was like a social aspect to it.
A little bit.
And there are like different groups that do that. Like I know locally, I mean, it's a networking group for women, but Rebel does like a virtual co-working, and I bet there are other groups that do that too. To point out 2 things in the chat, but Borden Felix did make a note that you can buy Adobe as a student if you have an edu email address, and it's I think a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Just in case you ever wanted to.
A good little hack.
I do still have my grad school student card because it doesn't have the date on it.
They don't.
And I always get
I don't remember
cheap
providing any
removed.
proof other than an email address. So.
Nice.
But I also wanted to answer Abby's question. She had a question about a simple resource for getting professional finances in order that won't break the bank or be overly complicated. And Sarah posted in the chat that she recently moved to QuickBooks, and I will double down on that and say that Campfire has gone through 3 or 4 different invoicing programs over the years, and we are also now on QuickBooks. And so I don't know exactly what the pricing is these days, but a couple years ago when I was freelance, they had like a specific version of QuickBooks that was for freelancers. And I want to say it was a little bit cheaper than like the full version, but I don't know. QuickBooks has changed a lot in the past couple of years.
They just upped it. I think it's like $15 a month now. So it's still,
that's not too bad.
It's still pretty inexpensive, but
yeah. But it's kind of like, even though it's not the cutest and it's a little bit more complicated, like every accountant is going to be like, just use QuickBooks. Like, don't even bother using one of the cuter ones with better branding. Eleanor, do you have any thoughts on that? I'm sure you do.
I do, yeah. Sorry, I had to step out, but you know, when a calls, you gotta go. So accounting package. I'm really old school because I know how to do accounting. So believe it or not, I do mine all on Excel. But saying that, Nicole Rutledge, she hooked me up with somebody called Brad, and I don't have his name, but he's located in Chicago, and he's special.
A guy named Brad.
You know Brad? Okay. So he specializes. No, you don't use Brad or?
No. I'm just like, I don't know him. I just loved it. Just like a guy named Brad.
Named Brad.
Great.
I've got a guy. Yeah. He's going to be talking to my class in 2 weeks' time. Okay, about this. For accounting for interiors is really complicated because we could sell our services as well as we sell our procurement of goods, sale of goods.
Right.
So it's not as simple as that. Now there's a lot of packages out there, and what Brad had told me was that the really good one, Ivy, I guess that was set up, was by House, and House aren't really accounting sort of people, and it doesn't interface with QuickBooks because that's what.
Yeah. Yep.
So we've had like that exact issue recently with interiors. We were using Ivy, they were moving to QuickBooks, and it was like a huge headache. And so I think, I don't know, maybe Christina or Rachel, you guys might know a little bit more about exactly what happened with that and where it's going.
It just kind of has to do with, like, specifically in interiors, you kind of have 2 forms of revenue. You have your design services revenue, and then you have a lot of revenue related to actual interior stuff like furniture. And those 2 types of revenue are categorized very, very differently, both from an accounting place and also by like the IRS. So you like have to keep them real separate from one another. And it just gets a little bit hairy using anything besides QuickBooks for that, apparently.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I don't do procurement.
Yeah,
fastest way for me to lose money. I have that system set up, and I don't want to grow my business. I really want to stick with just the consulting. And but Abby, I can hook you up with Brad. I talked to him for like 60 minutes this week, and we commiserated about how much House destroyed the Ivy software for interior designers. There was another one I used a long time ago, and I believe it still works. It's called Design Manager. I used it on 2 firms that I've worked with, and it was pretty good. It was still a little bit clunky, but I, hands down, getting the best accountant that you can who understands your business is the way to go. Not all accountants, and like I said, I come from that background, will understand your business and understand the complexity of interior designers selling fees versus procurement of goods. 2 different, relate to these items. But I'm happy to work with Abby directly on that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I told you, it's lifelong learning with you. Okay. You take a class with me and you give me as a resource till
awesome.
the very bitter end.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I know you guys have, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe you're going to go do something really great this afternoon and like take the day off, but everybody else that might be working the rest of the day. I don't want to take up too much of y'all's time and keep this casual. But this was really fun. I hope you guys had a good time. Our intention is to do this monthly. And so you guys can like come in when you want. Don't come if you aren't available. We'll continue to kind of put a poll in Instagram, and if people have questions that come up, or like you could always just like DM us and be like, hey, I had this question. Maybe you guys should review this in the next Clubhouse. I don't know, tell your buddies, maybe have them join us. We'll put this on YouTube if you want to share it with anyone or look back at it later. Any final thoughts, team? Anybody else?
This is great.
Come and talk to my class.
Great chatting with everyone.
Yeah, Eleanor,
yeah.
Definitely will. I'll put my email in the chat. And I mean, anybody can email me here, but Eleanor, feel free to send me an email, and we'd love to come talk to VCU.
I would love that.
And can we take a group photo? Sorry, Eleanor. Before we all go, can we take a group photo?
Okay.
And I have to see with my readers because I can see some. Okay, everybody smile. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Thanks.
Good idea.
Yeah,
good
always
idea,
on
Sarah.
it with the our resident marketer. Well, thank you all so much for coming, and hopefully maybe we'll see you next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Bye. Thanks for organizing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have a good weekend.